Hello and welcome to the On the Couch podcast, the podcast that gives you the view from the therapist chair. I'm your host, John Dennis, a licensed professional counselor. You're listening to OTC episode 14 with David Beard, the power of positive brainwashing and self-talk. Welcome back for another episode. So it's good to be back with you all in front of the microphone. I hope you all are doing well. And today's conversation that I get to share, I'm really excited about it because it's a conversation with David Beard, who is an assistant principal in SoLanCo School District, short for Southern Lancaster County School District. And I got to hear him speak at the TEDx Lancaster event back in October of 2018, and I'll include the link to his YouTube video from that. But I was so blown away by his message and his focus on the power of positive talk, and not just what you say, but how you say it. And the idea of positively, brainwashing, quote unquote, your kids, the people that you come into contact with, and just the importance of inoculating them against negative self-talk. And there are just billions and billions of dollars of research, books, and talk shows, so many things that have gone into researching, resiliency and what makes some people, pick themselves up after a failure or after a major negative event in their life, and what keeps people from doing that. And so this idea of positive talk, positive thought is so important for all of us, but especially for those that may have kids or work with kids. I mean, you see every day just the effects of that negative thought on our kids. And I think we can all relate to, just the negative landscape of childhood and adolescence, especially, middle school, high school age, that it's just so fraught with negativity, either from peers, from ourselves, just a lot of self-doubt and questioning. And that's part of why I loved hearing David talk about this, and hearing, you'll get to hear the passion in his voice, and a little bit of what he does with his own children and his own students at his school, but just teaching them to think better about themselves. It's on the one hand, it's so simple, but how many of us aren't doing it? And I know that there have been others, you've seen like YouTube videos or things like that crop up here and there of parents teaching their children self-talk and positive mantras and things like that. So one of the other things that you'll hear David and I talk about is the adverse childhood experiences study. And David shares a little bit about his own life, growing up, playing sports, and his upbringing. So a little bit more about David before we jump to the interview. He's actually in his 5th year as a middle school assistant principal at SoLanCo School District, which, as we mentioned, it's just south of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he's currently actually in a doctoral program for educational leadership through Newman University, which is just crazy to think that, he's a husband, he's a father, he's an assistant principal, he's doing TEDx talks, he's doing podcast interviews. Oh, and by the way, he's in a doctoral program also. So just for anybody else that feels like they're not doing enough with their life, I will join you. So here is my conversation with David Beard. David, thank you so much for taking time during your holiday break to be on the show. I really appreciate it, and I've been looking forward to sitting down to talk with you. I know we kind of went back and forth since the Lancaster TEDx event there in October. So welcome to the On the Couch podcast, and thanks for being on.
Thank you, John. Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you. Are you ready for 2019? You go back tomorrow morning, right?
I do. I am. I love fresh starts.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about yourself. What do you do? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, I'm an assistant principal in the SoLanCo School District. SoLanCo stands for Southern Lancaster County. It's in Pennsylvania. It's a rural district, and it's huge. It covers a lot of land. And I got into it because I had taught for 10 years prior to that, actually in Maryland, kind of across the line, really close to where that was. But I mean, it's funny. Like I never thought I was going to be in education, let alone leadership in education, and really how it started. So I love sports. Like I was involved my entire life, and I went to college. I wrestled in college. I went to Lockhaven. It's in central Pennsylvania, a little small state school.
Okay, yeah.
So I actually started. I knew I wanted to do something with sports, and I started as an athletic trainer just because I just thought it would be cool. Like I mean, kids going to school. They honestly, most of them have no idea what they want to do.
And yeah, for you and I at that time, I imagine sports management really hadn't come on that big at that point, right? So it was like athletic training and teaching, and then going into like coaching and that kind of thing. Yeah. You
got it. Yeah. I knew I wanted to be around sports. I loved working with kids. I had been working with kids since the time I was like 13, just doing camps and volunteer work. And I had run camps at my local community center in Lidditz. I grew up in a town called Lidditz. So I knew I wanted to do some with sports. And I remember, this was funny, I was talking to my advisor after my first semester. And I had done okay, and he was just kind of like a good old boy. You could tell he was like an ex-athlete and probably an ex-coach. And he said, "Man, you don't want to do this, do you?" And I said, I thought I did. No, I don't know. Why? And he said, "Well, like, don't you like working with kids?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "And you like sports?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, you need to be a phys ed teacher." He said, "Oh, okay." Yep. And that was it. And that was it. I mean, that's what my whole life has been based on, that one conversation. So there's definitely something that like led that to happen. And, I was just like open enough to make it work. And I thought it sounded cool. So like, that's how I got my start. And I've always loved coaching. I've always loved sports. So like I took it seriously. And I was really heavily involved in some leadership with, physical education in Maryland. And I had done some professional development stuff, where I would go to conferences and lead things. And one thing led to another. Leadership opportunities popped up, and I just really liked it. And then I just furthered my education. And, I'm always open to just trying new things and getting new experiences under my belt. And so I did an internship to be a principal, and thinking there's no way I want to do this. Like, this looks miserable. And like I wore sweats every day, right? And like I was like lifting weights with my kids, and it was awesome. It was fun. Like I felt like I was making a difference. But then as I started doing it, I just the truth was I didn't believe in myself at the time.
Sure.
And I just didn't think I could handle something like that. And then as I started doing it, I could see people looking at me differently. They were coming to me for advice and asking me questions. And this was weird to me because like I was not that guy. And I liked it. And I thought I could make a difference. And I just started pursuing other opportunities. So I started applying. And I tell you what, like I had applied 4 times in 3 months and had interviews. And in the county I was working at, they do county-based systems there for school. And I wasn't even getting a second round. So I sat down with a guy that I really respected. He was in charge of, he was a high up, like superintendent level in the county. And the guy is awesome. But he like really honestly said to me, "You know what? You should apply maybe somewhere else because I'm looking at 5 years for you." And I remember thinking, 5 years, like, you're crazy. Like, I've always confident, like when I was blasting forward with something, but, and I had already committed to this at that point. I realized I wanted to do this. So I applied somewhere else and I got the first job I interviewed for.
Wow.
Yeah, like it. I mean, I think I've just ended up at where I'm supposed to be for a reason, you know. I mean, and I do believe that. I believe that if you're pushing hard and you knock on enough doors, like the ones that you're not supposed to go through will close, and the ones that you're supposed to go through will open. It's just a matter of being resilient enough to get to that point. And I think a lot of people actually lack that today. I think people struggle with that, like the failure piece, you know.
Man, well, that's so. After that, the conversation with the advisor, did you completely change your major?
I did, on the spot. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
No.
And then you were saying with the internship, it almost sounds like you like backed your way into it. Like you, it's interesting to hear you talk about it because of, you know, the TEDx talk that you gave on like positive affirmation and positive self-talk. I imagine for you, much like for a lot of us, you know, you kind of come to a point where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like if people knew the real me or knew where I came from, you know, they wouldn't believe in me or I don't believe in myself half the time kind of thing, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, and even so, are you referring to like my topic, or are you referring to just the idea that I was doing it, the TED Talk?
Both.
So I felt like that when I was doing it, and here's why. Because if anybody has a chance to check out the lineup for TEDx Lancaster, there were some impressive people.
Okay, so I do like detailed show notes, so I'll make sure to link to that so anybody listening to this can access that TEDx talk.
So the way that came about, I'm glad you asked that, because like I really did feel out of place with that. And so they gave me the last speaking spot, and like I didn't really know why.
The closer.
Yeah. And he came up to me, the director, his name is Bob Basile. Dude is awesome. And like he does that. It's a total nonprofit. He just believes in the concept of TED, you know, just like sharing new ideas and ideas we're spreading. And he does some good work. I had met him because I got hooked up, and again, with opportunities. This was another one. So one of the teachers at my school came to me and said, Dave, I know you like this stuff. Like they're looking for people to help out with TEDx Youth. And it was the 2017 event. So she said, I'm helping with it. Maybe you want to help with it, looking for volunteers. So I showed up and I got involved, and I helped select the speakers for that event. And I remember going through the process, like helping select the speakers and kind of learning what they were looking for and thinking like, I could do this. I really think that I could do this. And again, that opportunity just kind of gave me enough belief to just be willing to mess up and fail. So I didn't really know what the topic was. And, you know, I do, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I had done from the time my kids they weren't even babies yet. When my wife was pregnant, I had started positive affirmations with them, and I was doing it with myself for a while. So
nice.
I remember just like thinking, well, maybe I could turn this into a talk. So I started thinking about it, and it got accepted.
Oh, crap.
I know. I know. And I had to write a script. And the script took me a long time to write, but like I think I got it how I wanted it. And then I met the lineup, you know, the other people speaking, and
yep.
They all had like accolades, right? They had all done something really special, like accomplished something, started a business, or like saving orphans, or, you know, like that was really one of the speakers was saving orphans. And
wow. Yeah. I remember Jack. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, they have established programs, and they're speaking already and doing all these things. And I remember like, I just didn't really feel like I belonged for a short second. Like I have enough confidence in myself, and I knew I was going to be okay speaking, but I'm like, good golly, like these people are awesome. And so like when I talk about the spoken word stuff, I have to live it every day, because if I don't, you know, crap seeps into my brain and like makes me feel less than what I am, unless when I know I should be. And I believe that happens to everybody. And, and it's the people that can just take action enough and keep moving forward and force it out and just almost be like, just dumb enough to not believe it. Right.
I like that.
I remember this is a funny comparison. I was thinking about this the other day with this. So I remember I was in, I don't know, high school or college, and like we would go to the beach and you want to talk to a pretty girl that you see or something. So you would I would try to, but I wouldn't have confidence in myself, and I would say something stupid and then like not follow through and just kind of like, hey, and like run away. Right. Like,
yep. Yeah. Middle school, elementary school. Yeah. Like,
right. But I was like 22.
Yeah.
So I remember the guys that like, I remember seeing, like I had a couple friends, like they would talk to girls and girls would talk to them, and they would like get their phone numbers and they would like go on a date with them. And I'm like, how is this guy's, he's a goon. Like, what in the world? And what it was, he just didn't care. He was just,
yeah, they just did it.
Right. And that is all it is. He was just like almost dumb enough to just try it.
Yeah.
And it worked. And I remember like just like him, throwing that concept into like life, like just be willing to just try it. And you might look like an idiot for like 30 seconds, but who cares? So as I went through this, the lineup with the TEDx talking, he told me I was the last speaker, and it's funny. Like at first in my head, I'm like, oh, there's got to be a reason why. I remember him saying one time that a lot of the people will leave halfway through the event anyway, because like a full day event is a lot for them. So, maybe my talk's not as important, and that's why they put me at the end.
And the crap started to seep into your brain. Yeah,
you got it. But and this is why I love this concept so much too, because it's not just what you put inside your head; it's what other people put inside your head that matters as well. Which is why it's important to associate yourself with great people. So, Bob Vasile, the director, pulled me aside, and it was the morning of, and he said, "Hey, congratulations on being the last speaker." And I was like, "What, Bob? I haven't gone yet." And he said, "No, this is a really important spot, and I know you're going to kill it. I believe in you. Your talk is awesome." And that was it. Like, that sold it for me. Like, I knew I was going to do great. And it's just a matter of like believing in yourself and having somebody else help you with that process. Because I think I'm strong in this area, but no matter how strong I am, I have to do it every day. Or, you never stay still in life, no matter what. You're talking fitness, you're talking like, your weight with health, whatever you're talking about, you will never stay the same. You're either getting better or getting worse every second. And if you're not putting good things in your head and somebody else isn't putting good things in your head, then you are leaving it up to the world, whatever happens to come your way, which most of the time isn't good. So, even stuff that we think it might not be a big deal, it's usually not good. Yeah. Right. Like, and when you can tell it's not good, like you and I can have conversations and say things like the word crap, for example. I say that. Right. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm an adult. It's not a good word, but if a kid says it's sort of like, right. If your child said the word crap, you're kind of like, oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Like, so I try to think like, if I don't want my little kid hearing or saying this, I probably shouldn't be saying it or letting it in my head either.
Man. Yeah. There's so many different places I could go. 'Cause, as a therapist, yeah, I mean, I'm working with people on the crap that seeps into their brain and the negative thoughts that, for whatever reason, it's one of the things I say to people all the time is, when people struggle with anxiety or depression, especially at night when they're falling asleep, like if you're not sleeping, you're laying there thinking, and you're not usually thinking the good stuff. You're usually thinking the bad stuff and going over, what you did wrong, or rethinking an interaction, or stressing out about something that's coming up ahead. So I recently talked with Josh Bound, the video gaming club, and I was telling him I had no idea what I was walking into at Lancaster TEDx. Like my wife got it for us for like a date, like an afternoon, and when I got in there and started hearing everybody speaking, I was like blown away. I was just like, wow. Like I want to talk to everybody that spoke. So on your end with, being an assistant principal, what are you seeing in terms of students and just trends in education? And
yeah, well, kids today, it's funny you said lack of sleep. I don't know if this is different from other decades. I mean, I've only done the assistant principal thing. This is my 5th year. I don't believe it was this bad though as it was 5 years ago, and I could be wrong, but I think lack of sleep is a big deal, and I think cell phones have a lot to do with that. And so you said, you said they're just lying awake. I know kids are lying awake just on their cell phone, hitting up each other on social media or whatever. And and I'm not going to blame it on games or video games or social media specifically. It's just a matter of not allowing yourself to shut off. And just keeping that brain moving. Like there's no need for that. We were built to rest. Yeah. And they're not allowing themselves to do it. So like I can see it in their eyes and their face and in their temper. Just lack of self-care in general. And I mean, kids are more obese today than they ever were. They don't understand healthy eating. Like they're not as active as they were before. So it's different. And you know what? I mean, our parents said that about our generation too, right? Well, these kids today, we used to have to walk through the snow and whatever. I think that's always going to be the case. And I think these kids are going to be saying that about the next generation too. And they're going to be okay. But sure, that part does scare me because I don't think that, they're learning how to take care of themselves. And I do see it affecting them that way. But you know what? Another thing I see with them, I think they're really accepting of others, of differences. And things still exist today like racism and, you got the whole thing with gender equality and all kinds of stuff that's new to our new to this generation that it wasn't really like mentioned or talked about as much when we were growing up, but they are way more accepting in my opinion. And I just see it with anti-bullying it's a big deal in schools, but I think the biggest reason it's a big deal is because it's been made such a big deal in the media and things, and it should be, because we need to make sure that we take care of each other, but they do a really good job. Like, physical violence is not just, maybe it's just my school, but I remember some hardcore fights and being afraid to go into the bathroom because kids would rough you up and some nasty stuff. And maybe I'm just removed, but I do think that they are more kind to each other in a lot of aspects. Now, they are still mean to each other on social media. That part does exist. It's just kind of replaced itself.
Yeah, and I usually talk about that with the parents and the kids that I work with, that it's changed. I think you're right. I think a lot of things have come a long ways, and we've put a lot of good focus and effort into education, and people are more aware of, like you were saying, the gender equality and things like that. But definitely the difference to me is, for you and I, the bullying stopped when you got home, unless it was a sibling that was picking on you.
You got it. Yeah.
But now with social media, it can be 24/7. So.
Well, that's where it starts, and a majority of it happens too, from what I've seen. The whole face-to-face interactions, and so this goes into in this decade too. What I really focus on, there's a trend in education, and I mean, it's been around a long time. They just kind of gave it a name now. The 5 C's of education, or the 4 C's. The 5 C's are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creative thinking, and character. And those things have always been around, but I think they're so important now because they do grow up differently. They grow up communicating differently. And I hate communicating on text like it was serious conversations.
Yeah, it usually doesn't go well.
Well, so when I say generation, I mean there's young teachers, right, that grew up doing that stuff. So conflict's tough for them. They don't know how to be confronted, and they don't know how to work through a tough situation. They don't know how to have tough conversations and build a stronger relationship through it. So we really talk about that, and when I confront kids, I always tell them, hey, I care about you, but I'm going to call you out if you mess up because I care so much about you and I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not going to pretend. It would be easier to pretend that this didn't happen and easier not to have to call your parents and deal with this with you. But I care about you and we're going to work through this, and then we go through the process. But I think that's something that they lack and a lot of young adults lack as well.
Sure. Well, and I usually tell, especially the teens that I work with, that idea of the opposite of love isn't hate. It's apathy. It's not caring and indifference.
Yeah.
If I care enough to get angry or frustrated or upset about something, I actually care about it. It may not get communicated the right way, but still moves the needle. So, and what you were explaining about some of the conflict and not shying away from that, I guess, what do you hope comes out of the positive affirmations, the things you've been using with your own kids and the students that you work with? Yeah. What do you want to see come out of that?
What I want to see is just they start to make decisions on their own. So a little bit of background. I'll go back to the education in a second, but I think a little bit of background here is I really what the affirmations mean to me is so when I grew up, it was a bit of a rough childhood. So another thing, one of your questions asked about something that I may want people to check out. If anybody is familiar or not familiar with the ACE study. So that has to do with trauma-informed and kids that deal with trauma growing up and all that stuff.
Yeah, let me interrupt you just for a second. So ACE studies stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Yes.
So for those that don't know, can you kind of explain a little bit about that? What's important to you about it?
Sure. So I mean, studies have come out, and a lot of different universities have done research on this now. Penn State has done a lot, and it's really come from their whole experiences with Jerry Sandusky and all that stuff. And so kids that grow up with dealing with stuff, and there's a list, and it ranges everything from divorce to mental health to drug addiction to death in the family. It just kind of crazy situations that you really don't want a kid to have to go through. Incarceration, being raised by grandparents for whatever reason, all that stuff, dad not being in the picture, that has been linked to, and you may even know more about it than I do, but that has been linked to all kinds of health factors, being at risk for different things, dying at an earlier age, just poverty, living in tougher situations, all kinds of stuff. So when I started learning about this, I had a lot of those. I probably had 5 of them. So my mom and dad were divorced. To me, it wasn't that big of a deal having when I was 4, but my mom got involved with some tough guys, some drugs and alcohol abuse. My dad was an alcoholic, and he's been in recovery for about 30 years now. So a lot of different things. And my mom's awesome. She made a lot of choices that I would not want for my kids. But one thing that she did well, and I always knew this about her. One, she supported me like crazy, even when she shouldn't have, probably. And 2, she told me all the time how I was going to help and impact hundreds of millions of people. I was going to change the world. I was made special. I was put here for a reason. And every day, all the time. And most of the time it would come out something like, you don't want to end up like me. We're only in the situation still, there's no reason that we're still doing how well we're doing because of me. There's another power at play here. She's very spiritual, and she would always say, you're the only reason that we're still doing well because you were put on this earth for a great purpose and you're going to help people. And I just believed it. I just started to really believe it. And, I remember another thing she did. So she put in my head from the time I was really young that I was going to college. And it was just, I would work 10 jobs if I had to. You're going to college. You got no choice. You're going to college. And I actually believed that. So my buddy, we were best friends. And I remember junior year, we were starting to look at colleges and stuff and with sports and things. And I'm like, so where do you think you're going to college? And he said, I don't think I'm going to college. And I was blown away. I was like, you can do that? Like, you're not going? And I knew that, like, people didn't go. Like, logically, I knew that. But the idea never seeped into my brain because
never even occurred to you. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, holy cow, my mom brainwashed me. Like, she like literally like put that in my head. So like with that, I just remember, my brother's he works in hedge funds. He does super well. He's in Chicago. My other brother's an engineer, like outside Baltimore, doing really well. And the recipe that we grew up with just didn't make sense to what we are today. Semi-successful to some sort. And a lot of it as well had to do with being involved in sports and the people in our lives and speaking good things into us and believing in us and supporting us and knowing that we had some crazy things going on. So what do I want out of it? I want something like that for these kids. So I work in a population that's 50% free and reduced lunch, which means poverty. And, people that are living in poverty, for whatever reason, they're in a spot in their life that's tough, obviously, right? They're dealing with stuff that's the reason they're there. It doesn't mean they're going to be there forever, but they're dealing with some tough stuff. And most of the time it's because they don't know how to get out of it. So if they don't know how to get out of it themselves, how are they going to help the kids get out of it? And I think my mom was, again, just kind of dumb enough to just believe that I was going to do it, right? And she spoke it into me, but I want people to be successful, not necessarily think back to, wow, Mr. Beard did that for me, but like just remember that somebody put something in them that sparked something.
Well, yeah, man, because I grew up. My dad was a teacher for 30 plus years in Montgomery County, Maryland, and yeah, that idea of, I think a lot of us, especially people that have made it, that they're really successful, they're in whatever field they're in. A lot of times they can point back to one or more people that, really believed in them, pushed them, was a mentor for them, whether that's a parent or a coach or a teacher. So I think that's awesome that, you have that fire to instill that in the kids that you work with. And as you were talking, that idea of Dave Ramsey kind of cropped up. I know we're both familiar with him. I'm a self-proclaimed Dave Ramsey addict. But that idea, he talks about, there's a difference between being broke and being poor. And the idea of, poor is kind of this state of mind that we allow ourselves to just wallow in. And broke is kind of the idea of like, I'm not doing so hot right now, but I'm not staying here long and I'm getting myself out of this situation. You're listening to OTC episode 14 with David Beard. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
Life is hard, but Parenting and Family Solutions is here to help. Our board-certified counselors are easy to talk to and offer a safe, encouraging environment to help you with your unique needs. We specialize in helping clients of all ages deal with depression, anxiety, marriage issues, screen addiction, and ADHD, just to name a few. We now have daytime and evening appointments available in Harrisburg and Lancaster and accept most major insurance plans. Visit our website to learn more at www.parentfamilysolutions.com or give us a call at 717-602-5560. Let us help you build a stronger family and a healthier you.
So yeah, with the positive affirmation, are you able to share any success stories up to this point of like, yeah, kids that have come back and been like, man, yeah, that really meant a lot to me, or that really changed my life?
Well, I had a guy. So my first year, we do the commencement every year at SoLanCo, and I had taught in Maryland before that. So he was yelling as I was walking out my first year of commencement. I think he had graduated that year or the year before, and was like, his girlfriend was now walking. But so the schools that, even though they were in different states, the school that I worked at and the school that I work at now, they're still close, within like 20 miles of each other. So he must have been dating this girl. And as I'm walking out, he's yelling, "Mr. Beard, Mr. Beard," and he's being a goon, right? Like, I mean, this is for like graduation, and like you're yelling at me, like, dude, relax. But so afterwards, like, I made my way to him just to kind of know who he was, and I barely remembered him, but he said, "You were just so awesome to me, and you treated me well all the time. Like, people always thought I was a punk, and I kind of was sometimes. You know, he was a goofy kid, but he's like, you just like always believed in me." And he said, "You always told me how good I was at, I think it was soccer or something." And like that, just a little spark. I was able to put something good in his mind and in his brain, and but. You know, I don't know if it works for everybody. I tell people to, and I talk to teachers about this all the time. I say, look, all we want is growth, right? So I deal with obviously the toughest kids in the school on a regular basis because the discipline stuff. But discipline is about teaching behaviors. Yep. And we have to change the way they think to do that. And it's not about, so the old school of discipline, I call it old school. I don't know if it is, but it's the principal, you know, you send them to the principal's office, they give them a suspension, and you give it to them good. And it's like, why? Like, what's that going to change? So, like, we work on a plan, and I do this with kids. I tell them, I say, look, here's our plan. I'm going to check in with you every day. You're going to come up with 7 things that you're going to say positive to yourself. And one of them was, he couldn't come up with 7. He just wanted to say champion, winner, superstar. And I actually created it for him because he couldn't do it. He wasn't going to do it. And then his mom started creating good things for him too. That was one of my favorite moments ever. So she said, hey, tell him what we say. Tell him what we say. And it was something like, "I'm awesome, inspiring, and wonderful," or something. And it's like, it was like that, pay it forward, right? Like somebody else was doing it too. Like it made a difference. And I mean, the fact is, if you have to hear these things a lot to start to believe them. So in the TED Talk, I said there was a marketing study that said that it takes an average of 7 times for somebody to hear something before they actually buy into it. And that's with any concept.
The only place I would challenge that is negatively.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we buy into the negative so fast.
I know.
Which is so sad as humans. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I think that idea of like we all need this. It's not just for our kids, it's for all of us.
Yeah. So my wife does it with my kids now too. So I do it every night with my kids. Like I have this routine that I just go through. We have a bedtime routine. But even today it happened, and I just love hearing it. It just makes me so happy. So one of them said something kind of rude to the other one. Might have called them stupid or something, right? Like they're 6-year-old twins. So like, I wish I could say that my kids are perfect. I'm an assistant principal. I'm a perfect disciplinarian. They do everything right, but they don't. And so what she did was she pulled them aside and she said, "Now you got to say," I think she made him say 3 good things. Find 3 sincere good things, and you tell him 3 good things about himself right now. And one that forces my one son to like think about something good about him, which is a great practice, right? That's If you want to be good with people, like inspire them, tell them good things about themselves, be sincere about it. And 2, it helped the other one because like when you hear junk, no, that's not true. I was just being angry. I'm sorry. Here, this is what I really think about you. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's just so awesome. And, I mean, I don't know if my wife would have done that anyway, but it's kind of become like a common practice in our house now, especially with the TED Talk and stuff. It's like who we are. So
sure, which is awesome. Yeah, I want to give you space to go through the kind of the full thing. So yeah, what's sort of the routine you go through with your own kids?
Yeah, so it started when you mentioned Dave Ramsey. It actually came from him originally. So I used to listen to his podcast all the time, and he would tell me that he said about, I think he has 2 daughters and a son, and he would say, Ramsey girls are, beautiful, strong, tough, smart, something like that. And he only had like 4 things. So I liked it, and I kind of wanted to mesh it. And, I knew a lot of these other concepts. I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill was the author, and he had kind of done this study of the richest people in America at the time. It was like the 1920s. So when he did that, one of the things he came up with is something called autosuggestion, where people just basically tell themselves something all the time. And Napoleon Hill's son, according to the story as well, was actually born with no ears. So if you look this up, it's a pretty cool story. So he's born with no ears, but Napoleon Hill found a way to kind of talk in the back of his mandible. I know this sounds crazy, but like this is the stuff I heard that I just started to buy into. And the vibrations of putting his lips to the back of his son's mandible, like jawbone in the back, he was able to comprehend what he was saying. So his son went on to work with like a hearing aid company or something and was very successful. And I just love these stories. So I created my own positive affirmations for my kids. And I had been doing it for myself for a couple of years. And my own was every day and every way I get better and better. And I still say it. And I picked 25 times. I just picked 25 because it's like a good number to count easily. And you know what? So many people try to start off doing stuff that's just so far-fetched, and like especially with the new year right now, like people are going to try set goals that are ridiculous. Like you've never done that in your life, and you're not going to be able to keep it up.
Yeah, it's like trying to, if I tried to go out and run a marathon tomorrow, I'm going to injure myself is what's going to happen.
It's horrible. And you hate it, the whole process. So I just picked something that I was like, I'm going to commit to this. And I did. And like, it brainwashed me. I use the term brainwashing a lot because like you clean out your brain of all the negative junk and you put positives inside of it. And, so that's the phrase I stuck with. And I would get intense about it. I would look in the mirror when I'd say it. And so I came up with these affirmations, and I just started saying them to I started saying them to my kids when my wife was pregnant. And I would go up to her belly every night, and I would just start like ranting. I had this whole list, and I would start reading it. And she got freaked out by that, so she ended it really quickly. But I would still do it then. She would be in the room and I would just start doing it. And I would get intense and jacked up about it. So every night we read, we say our prayers, and then I just start in on it. So I just started to say, beard boys are strong, tough, smart, successful. Beard girls, you're pretty strong, tough, smart, successful. You're going to help and impact hundreds of millions of people. You're going to change the world. You are competent and confident and aggressive and competitive. You're a champion, a winner, superstar. You fail forward. Nothing slows you down. Nothing gets in your way. You blow through goals with a vengeance. You are kind, sweet. You're sincere. You're trustworthy and tender. You're loving. You're respectful, dependable, accountable, and reliable. You're good with people. People love you, trust you, and respect you. You stand up for what you believe in. You're athletic and powerful and explosive and bold and coordinated and wonderful. You have charisma. You have a sense of magnetism. People are drawn to you. Every day and every way you get better and better. Body, mind, soul, serve is how you improve daily. God, country, family, business, that's the order of your life. You're a champion. You're always growing, always learning, always winning, always loving, always serving. You lead people better than how you found them. You're a person of character, and you do what's right when nobody's looking. You're always excited, always upbeat, always positive, always moving forward. You light up a room when you enter it. You have a contagious smile. You're funny. People love being around you. You've got a good work ethic, and you finish what you start. I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you. And, I can go on in different tangents. It's not the same every night. Like there's sort of an order to it, but I add stuff like that was probably different than the one that I did at the TED Talk. It was probably a little different than the one I did tonight for them. But one thing I realized when I did it was, and so the topic of my TED Talk, or the title was, it's not just what you say. It's also how you say it. So I knew this concept, and that's why I did it. I knew the idea and I believe in it. So I started rehearsing it. And I was rehearsing it for Bob DeSeal, the director, and he said, you know what, I'm a little confused. Like your topic and your ideas, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. But when you go through it, you're just like a robot. I don't believe what you're saying.
Man.
So Like that was after I was saying it for 6 years. Like I've been doing this for 6 years, and he's just telling like, and I know like there's times when I'm probably more excited than others. So just this process has gotten me like jacked up about it again, and really focusing on like believing it, because when people can feel the sincerity and passion in your voice, like, and really coming from the heart, like that's what helps people buy in. That's what makes them believe it and really pierces them. So I try to get real intense about it. It's funny, like there are nights where I keep it short because I'm tired.
Yeah.
And bedtime's tough with 3 little kids. And
you don't say.
Yeah. And like I stop it, and they'll tell me, they'll say, why'd you only say some stuff? You didn't say it all.
Yeah. They call you out.
They do. And it's awesome. It's awesome because it's becoming a habit to them. And they want to hear it before they go to bed.
Now, are they at the point where they're able to do it?
So they'll repeat it with me, but no, like I'm glad you asked that, because somebody said that to me the other day. Say, could they do this like without you? I don't think they could yet, because I don't know. I mean, they've asked me recently, like they'll ask me within the last year and a half, they say, what's persistent mean? Mm-hmm. What's passionate mean? And they'll like ask me what's character, and like so that's really cool. But no, I don't think they could say it yet. But that would be an awesome next challenge,
Oh, sure. Yeah, and they will be able to. I mean, definitely, like you said, 7 times. Obviously, we just kicked off 2019. What do you got cooking? What's going on for 2019?
Yeah. So it's funny that I saw that on your questions, and again, I was like, man, what's he think I am? I'm not one of these crazy good speakers that does all these things, but
I don't know. When you listed the stuff, I was like, oh, man.
So I'm in a superintendent program right now. I'm doing my doctorate, so I'm going to be starting a dissertation. And I think I'm going to be doing something. I would love to be doing something with the spoken word. And it's just a matter of learning how to measure that, do some sort of qualitative study on what that does to students if you say specific things, like studying their attendance and their grades and their behaviors.
Yeah.
So that's something that is just getting started. I mean, I haven't even gotten that approved yet. But since the TED Talk as well, I had 2 school districts reach out to me as well and ask if I would come and speak to their leadership team. So it's just neat. You never know where it's going. So, I mean, outside those 2 things, I just love keeping my doors open and willing to do whatever I can to help. I really do believe that. I want to help and impact hundreds of millions of people. And I set that goal. So I stole that from somebody. I don't even know where I stole it from. It was like their family mantra. We want to help and impact people, is what they said. But why just people? Why not like explode it, right? Like there's people in the world that have influenced hundreds of millions and billions. So like, what's going to happen if I don't influence hundreds of millions of people? Like, so what? So I influence hundreds? That's cool. I'm still okay with that. So like, whatever I can do to help people, and and I'll give you all my contact info too if anybody wants to reach out to me. Like I'd love to have a conversation with whatever I can do.
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you a sec now. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at DaveBeard_. And then on Facebook, Dave Beard, and then my email is David_Beard at SoLanCoSD.org.
And that's beard as in facial hair, so BEARD. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you didn't go with David for the Facebook or the Twitter. I don't think ahead with this stuff. It's just like wherever it leads. Like, I didn't get this started as to be like, hey, I'm going to be a professional speaker. I'm going to do all this stuff. Like, I just set up an account and I started talking to my kids and saying good things to them. And now I'm doing a podcast with you, and I did a TED Talk, and I'm like, what in the world? But it's so awesome. And I really think it just shows that, like, if you just take action and do things that other people don't do, people look at you like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And really anybody can do it. Yeah. I mean, when sadly, I mean, nothing against you, but yeah, the idea of like the concept, it's not like mind-blowingly, God, I've never heard that. Like saying good things it can have a huge impact. Like, but then when when you look at your own life, or like, for you and I as parents, you're like, man, at least for me, I was almost like, I got to start doing that. Like, man, I was pretty pumped up.
That's the biggest compliment I've gotten. And I've heard it from you. I've heard it from a couple of other people. Like, I was so excited to go home and say it to my kids. My sister-in-law created something for my nieces, and it's awesome. That's been my favorite part of it, hearing those stories.
Well, and kind of what you were saying about, how many people you impact, just that concept of compound interest of like as a teacher or as an assistant principal, or, if you, doctorate and superintendent, if that's in your future, everybody you come in contact with can exponentially impact the world. So you can have a hand in that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Zig Ziglar was a motivational speaker from a long time ago, and he had a quote that said, if you help enough people get what they want, you will just by default get what you want.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I always give a spot for my daughter, Riley, to ask a question. And the one that she's been asking people is, if you could be any animal, what would you be and why? So my 6-year-old daughter's question.
That was the hardest one to answer on the whole sheet.
Yeah.
I was seriously like, I'm going to be a monkey. Yeah.
She asks better questions than I do. Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to be a monkey. No, like a shark. No, this sounds scary. But no, an eagle. I'm going with the eagle. An eagle. So like you can fly super high. You can see all kinds of cool stuff. And really, like you can, like you're in control of whatever you want. Like your life is yours. And I just love that idea of freedom and being able to control what you want. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles just made the playoffs. That was really cool too.
Yep. I was going to ask if that tied in. So yeah,
a little bit.
So yeah, to wrap up, is what's something you wish all students knew? If you were speaking to every student, what do you wish they knew?
I wish that they knew how to think big, how to dream, how to like. And it's a scary thing. People don't know how to do that. It's like they'll say in education. I think we get this wrong. We ask people, we tell kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? Like, I changed my major on the whim. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was 19 years old. So, I think like kids, but what they can do is they know if they want to have money or not money, right? They know if they want to have a pretty wife or a not pretty wife. They know if they want to have like, kids that are well behaved or kids that are crazy. Like,
yep.
They know that. So if they learn how to just like dream on that and set goals on that, right? And so they say, I want to be a professional athlete. Fine. Like, do that. I don't care. That's an awesome goal, but here's what it takes to get there. So let's set out a plan.
Yeah.
They just don't know how to think big, and they don't know how to dream. And, I want them all to be able to know how to do it, because the world is now your competition. Right. So when like it's not like it was like even 20 years ago where you're only competing against people locally. You're competing against people around the world. So you got to be creative. You got to be inspiring. You got to be motivating. You got to have a great work ethic. And
I think also with that, I think you were saying before about like having a thicker skin and not being, risk and failure averse.
Yeah.
Kind of what you were saying in the mantra of like fail forward,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love to study guys like even Kevin Hart. He's a recent guy that I just love watching some of his stuff. And one thing he talks about, I think he was doing an interview with Oprah, and he said like, people think like I'm an overnight success. He's like, I was driving to nightclubs, driving home at 4 a.m. and then getting up at 6 a.m. to go like wash dishes, like for like 8 years.
Yeah. And that podcast that I mentioned, the off camera, a lot of the actors say the same thing. Like Matt Damon was one of the first ones he interviewed, and he was like, they would almost get like upset about being called this like overnight success. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like I had my, Screen Actors Guild, membership for like 10 years before Good Will Hunting ever hit the screens. Like, it's not like I just showed up overnight. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that resilience and I mean, I love that too. So I want kids to learn how to fight through those struggles and you know what? People that deal with stuff early on, and I think that's a strength of mine. So like I grew up in not a perfect household, but like there's really not much that's going to fluster me. It's going to take a lot. And it's because I kind of grew up in turmoil a little bit. And that's okay. And I think a lot of great leaders have that experience. So like, I want my kids to fail, and I want them to have big dreams. So they wrestle and, they're 6. I mean, I know it's like, they're just like throwing each other around. It's not real intense, but
yeah,
I'm okay if they get beat up a little bit, like, not hurt, but not injured, but like a bloody nose is not a bad thing. And like, if they're crying and it's okay, you're allowed to cry. Like, let's fight through this. I'm so proud of you. Like, that is how you grow and get better. Growth hurts, man. And so dream big and fight hard. And I want people to be inspired to do that. And and you know what? Sometimes you wish you could take the pain away, especially from your own kids, but like, you can't.
Yeah. And in the long run, we're probably better for it. I always say to the clients I work with, for whatever reason, we learn more through pain.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but we just do. So,
yeah.
Well, man, David, thank you so much for taking the time, like I said, to carve out on your holiday break. And I'm really looking forward to see where you go with your doctorate and, being a superintendent and just any speaking engagements moving forward. I'd definitely love to check some of those out. So thanks again.
Thanks for what you're doing. I love this podcast and the whole idea behind it.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully, kind of like I was saying to Josh, hopefully we both get to help a lot of people. So that's kind of the whole idea. So
very cool.
Wow. So I hope you guys got something out of that. I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much as I enjoyed talking with David. He's just such an amazing guy, so passionate. You can really tell he's doing amazing things with the students, with his kids. And like I said in the conversation, I'm really looking forward to keeping tabs on him and seeing where he goes and what he does down the road. As always, the phone number to call in is 717-897-0577, or you can email questions to info@parentfamilysolutions.com and just throw podcast question in the subject line. So this topic of positive self-talk and thinking positively, it's not just for our kids. It applies to adults as well, and whether you have kids or not. One study was done at Johns Hopkins University by Dr. Lisa Yannick and her colleagues, and they actually found that people who they had a family history of heart disease and cardiovascular events, that teaching them about the power of positive thinking, about learning how to cognitively reframe things, which is kind of just a big psychological term for learning how to change your thinking and learning how to view a situation or an experience differently. They found that people were actually 1/3 less likely to have a heart attack or a cardiovascular event within 5 to 25 years, as opposed to those that had a negative outlook. They had a lot more negative self-talk, weren't learning how to cognitively reframe things and develop that resiliency to work beyond it. So one technique would be just to write down some positive statements, some positive mantras, things that you can repeat to yourself. And they actually cite looking at yourself in the mirror is really a way to increase the power of this. Just saying these things a couple of times or for a couple of minutes each day has such a huge effect. And I would encourage you just to try it out, see how it goes after just, 20, 30 days of doing this, see the impact of it. Well, that about wraps up OTC episode 14. Next, OTC episode 15, I get to speak with Heather J. Boardman, who is a licensed clinical social worker and co-parenting counselor at Blanc Counseling in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Take care. If you liked what you've heard on the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and review wherever you're catching this podcast at. You can check out any links and resources on our detailed show notes or other episodes that have been archived at www.parentfamilysolutions.com/podcast. If you want to catch up on what Parenting and Family Solutions is doing, be sure to follow us on any of your favorite social media apps. This is your host, John Dennis, saying good night. The author and host of this podcast is not engaged in a therapeutic relationship with the listener and cannot give counseling advice without a confidential appointment. Listeners should be sure to consult with a licensed therapist in their area or seek emergency medical attention if they are experiencing psychological difficulty. A special thanks to the Topsy Turvies for the show theme song. Their song, Like a Living Dead, can be found at topsyturvies.bandcamp.com. The bump interview track was the song 1973 by Bruno E. The author and host of this podcast is John Dennis. Special thanks to producer and editor Trevor Groff.